My love, listen carefully. I am ending everything, not because love died, but because truth arrived. I never wanted distance. I never planned departure. I fought myself nightly. I begged fate silently. You saw my smiles, but missed my storms. You heard my laughter, but ignored my pauses. I stayed while breaking. I smiled while bleeding. I loved while drowning. I hoped while disappearing. This confession hurts, because it is honest, because it is late, because it is necessary. I held your hands while losing mine. I kissed your forehead while losing sleep. I chose silence daily over painful honesty. I chose peace briefly over permanent healing. You thought I changed. You thought I cooled. You thought I drifted. You thought I weakened. But love does not vanish. It suffocates quietly. It waits patiently. It dies respectfully. I was still loving, but not living. I was still giving, but not receiving. Every conversation ended before I could speak. Every emotion paused before you listened. You loved my presence, not my pain. You loved my strength, not my exhaustion. I needed understanding, not just affection. I needed safety, not just promises. I tried explaining gently. I tried hinting softly. I tried crying silently. I tried waiting endlessly. But you never asked why I changed. You never asked what I needed. You assumed forever was automatic. You assumed love was self-sustaining. Love needs witnessing. Love needs listening. Love needs effort. Love needs humility. I became background noise. In my relationship, I became convenient, not cherished deeply. You loved me when I was strong. You loved me when I carried everything. But when I tired, I softened. When I needed holding, you looked away. I stopped sharing fears because they annoyed. I stopped sharing dreams because they scared. I reduced myself to remain lovable. I shrank my needs to remain chosen. That was mistake. That was betrayal, not of you, but of myself. I lost identity slowly while preserving us. I lost voice quietly while protecting peace. Every time I swallowed, my truth returned heavier. Every time I smiled, my soul cried louder. I watched you relax. While I carried tension, I watched you rest. While I stayed alert, love should feel safe, not like walking on emotional glass, barefoot daily. I feared confrontation because losing you terrified, but losing myself destroyed me daily. I waited for a moment when you would notice, when you would ask, when you would care. That moment never came. Days turned years, hope turned habit, pain turned routine. I loved you sincerely, but alone. I fought for us, but unsupported. Partnership requires balance, not silent sacrifice, not one-sided endurance, not invisible suffering. You never meant harm, but intention isn't impact. Love isn't enough. Without awareness, I am ending this, not out hatred, but out survival, out self-respect. I choose myself today. Because nobody else did, I choose healing over familiar pain. This will destroy you, because truth always does. Not because I'm cruel, but because reality hurts. You will replay moments, searching for signs. They were always there. You just ignored them. You will remember fights where I went quiet. That was resignation, not peacemaking. You will remember distance, mistaking it maturity. It was emotional withdrawal. It was elf protection. I forgive you truly, but forgiveness doesn't bind. It simply releases. Both of us. I release expectations. I release resentment. I release us. I release myself. Love should feel mutual, not like endurance test, not like proving worth repeatedly alone. I wish you growth, not guilt. I wish you awareness, not regret. One day you'll understand why I left, not because love ended, but because neglect persisted. Remember this always. The quiet ones leave after screaming internally for far too long. Now listen deeper, because this hurts more than silence, more than goodbye. I didn't leave suddenly. I left gradually, piece by piece, breath by breath. I stayed hoping you would notice the cracks widening inside my chest. I stayed believing love could awaken your sleeping awareness, your buried empathy. But love alone cannot educate hearts that refuse listening, that avoid responsibility. I began disappearing in conversations unfinished, in tears unacknowledged, in needs unmet. You called me distant. You blamed stress. You blamed timing. You blamed everything except your absence, except your comfort, except your unwillingness to meet me. I wasn't asking miracles. I wasn't demanding perfection. I was asking presence, consistency, and care. I wanted you curious about my sadness, about my silence, about my change. Instead, you assumed I would adjust, I would endure, I would stay. You were confident in my patience. You were relaxed in my loyalty. You forgot something. Patience has limits. Loyalty needs nourishment. Love needs reciprocity. I gave reassurance while feeling unsure. I gave commitment while feeling abandoned. I celebrated you loudly while grieving quietly. I defended you publicly while bleeding privately. You never saw the exhaustion behind smiles, the heaviness behind jokes, the fear behind calm. I learned self-control to avoid conflict. I learned restraint to protect us. But protecting us shouldn't cost me my emotional safety, my mental peace. I trained myself not to complain, not to ask, not to need. That training broke me, slowly and visibly, until love felt like labor. You thought I matured because I went quiet. You thought I healed because I stopped asking. But silence wasn't healing. It was surrender. It was acceptance of emotional loneliness. I felt alone while being loved. I felt unseen, while being chosen. That contradiction destroyed me, more than heartbreak, more than loss, more than separation. I questioned myself daily, nightly, constantly. Am I asking too much? Am I difficult? That self-doubt wasn't mine originally. It was planted by neglect repeated. Love should affirm, not confuse identity, not erase worth, not shrink voice. I needed partnership, not performance. I needed warmth, not tolerance. You listened defensively, not openly. You heard responses, not emotions. Every time I opened, you closed slightly. Every time I shared, you minimized gently. You didn't mean cruelty, but comfort blinded you. Privilege numbed empathy. Security created laziness. You assumed availability meant immortality. You assumed effort was optional now. That assumption is why I'm leaving. That comfort is why this ends. I cannot keep teaching someone how to love me while unlearning how to love myself. I cannot keep waiting for awareness arrival while my heart keeps deteriorating. I reached breaking point quietly, respectfully, without drama, without threats. I chose dignity over desperation. I chose honesty over habitual pain. You will feel blindsided because you weren't listening. You will feel betrayed because you felt secure. Security without effort creates emotional debt, eventually collected with interest. This ending will haunt you because it was preventable, because love was present, but awareness absent. You will replay words, moments, gestures, trying to locate where you failed. The truth is simple, but painful. You loved me, but didn't see me. You wanted peace, not connection. You wanted ease, not emotional depth. Depth requires discomfort. Growth requires humility. Love requires accountability, not just feelings. I forgive you again, not for closure, but for freedom. Mine especially. I refuse bitterness. I refuse hatred. I refuse carrying what isn't mine. I carry lessons. I carry clarity. I carry strength, earned painfully. I am walking away, not broken, but awakened, not empty, but lighter. You will survive this, eventually evolve. If you choose reflection over self-defense, one day you'll love someone like me and remember this loss. With new understanding, you'll show up sooner, you'll listen deeper, you'll ask questions you once avoided, and that growth will come from this pain, from this ending, from my leaving. That is why this will destroy you, not because I ended, but because you'll understand. Understand what you lost. Understand when too late. Understand love requires more than intention. This is my truth, unfiltered, complete. This is my closure. This is my courage.